Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. This is the Pastor Isaac B. Green of Life Church in Chicago Heights, Illinois. And I'm gathered here with one of my good friends. He's no stranger to anyone, especially at Life Church and on the south side of Chicago. Somebody who believes in giving back, educating, and facilitating knowledge to help us all to live a healthier, more productive life. None other than Dr. Tony Hampton from Chicago, Illinois. Dr. Hampton, how are you doing this evening?
I am excited to be here, and who would pass on the opportunity to educate my people about this vaccination that we are blessed to have in our communities now.
Amen. Amen. It's like I said, 2020 was a rough time for America, for the world, and especially the African-American community, as we were disproportionately impacted and continuously are impacted by this virus. And so thank God for technology that has speeded up the process of being able to discover something in years past. It took years to come with a vaccine, but due to technology and advancement in science and knowledge, they were able to get us a vaccine in less than 12 months. I know a lot of people are skeptical. How can that be? I'm not going to ask how can that be. Thank God that it can be.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm not going to question how can it be. I'm going to thank God that it can be. And so there's just a lot of questions, a lot of apprehensions. If we look at history, we as African Americans, we've been negatively impacted by experiments that hurt our community. So rightfully so, we have questions. We're skeptical.
That's right.
We want to make sure that anything we put into our bodies is not going to harm our bodies, but it's going to help our bodies. And so for that reason, Doctor, when I thought about hey, how can we as a church, as a community come together and really just be at ease and have the courage to take advantage of this vaccine? I said, let's get some experts, people who know more than I do, people who study this, and people who's on the front line. And so you came to mind, and I'm just so thankful and indebted to you that you said, absolutely, I will be a part of this conversation. So for those of you who are out there listening on Facebook, YouTube, hey, we're looking. I want you to chime in, ask questions, be a part of this. It's a community forum. It's not a data dump. Dr. Tony Hampton, he's going to discuss what we're dealing with. He's going to give some pros and some cons, and he's going to tell you about his own experience. And we want to all learn and grow from this, because from this conversation, as you learn more this evening, I want to challenge you and encourage you to take this information, spread it to your family, spread it to your friends, spread it to your coworkers, because at the end of the day, the only way we get through this pandemic is we have to get vaccine. Okay, we're not looking for herd immunity, right? That's a lot of people's dead from that. We're looking that we can get vaccine and we social distance, that we stop the virus. So I'm looking for individuals, take this information tonight, take good notes, listen in, ask questions. So let this be the launching pad of us educating our families, our communities, our co-workers that, hey, I should go and get vaccine. And my advice to individuals is, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you, go to your doctor, have a talk with your doctor. And if the doctor says that you are in good health to have the vaccine, right. Then I say, I encourage you to get the vaccine. If the doctor says, but I'm not your doctor. I'm your pastor. I'm the preacher. I'm the teacher, but I'm not your doctor. So I'm going to stay in my lane. And I'm going to let the true professionals tell you if this is in your best interest. So without any further ado, I'm going to have Dr. Tony Hampton to just give us some overall perspective as we start to deal with this new vaccine that we have. So if you're out there on Facebook, YouTube, show some love and send up some hearts out there and say thank you, Dr. Tony Hampton, for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate us, to inform us, and to encourage us on taking advantage of this great novel vaccine that we have. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tony.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Green, for the opportunity to speak to your congregation. It is truly a gift to share the message of healing. And I am the recipient of the Pfizer vaccine. I got my first vaccine a couple of weeks ago, and I got my second shot in this arm And other than a little soreness that you get typically from a vaccine, I've been blessed to not have any really side effects whatsoever. So I'm very excited about that. In fact, when in Advocate Aurora Health System, where I work, I was able to learn that some of my colleagues, when they got their vaccine, actually shed a tear because they were probably frustrated with having to pronounce some of our patients dead because they didn't survive. I personally have signed more death certificates in the last 6 months than I've ever signed. And I really don't want to continue to do that. And so I'm very excited. But as it relates to the community that I'm speaking to, we've always had some health, economic, and racial disparities. There, education. All of those are disparities. And if you think about your family members who work on the front lines, I work from home today, I saw 28 people virtually in this same seat I sit in right now. But most of my friends and family, they can't do that. So a lot of people of color are forced to work and they can't do it virtually. And so that's a problem. And just having access to the right food and all these other things are risk factors. And truth be told, we're probably twice as likely to have heart disease, 50% higher risk of hypertension. All of these medical conditions put us at risk for not doing well if we get exposed to COVID. So I want you guys to, first of all, understand there's higher risk in the communities that we live in. And then understand that if we make some small decisions that may move us in a slightly different direction, we may then be able to protect ourselves much better from this vaccination. So one of the things that come up always is this question around, what is this vaccine all about, right? So I want you to think about your immune system. Anybody that listens to me speak, they know that I'm all about healthy living. And some of the people, even in the low carb, healthy living community, have tweeted that I don't want to have anything to do with a vaccine because I'm a healthy person. Well, I can personally attest to having lost a patient or two who were healthy and they succumbed to COVID. So being healthy is definitely a helpful thing, but it's not all you can do to be safe. So and so think of the immune system. You have these inside your cells. I'm going to think of it in terms, like I'm in my home. So if I have my immune system strong because I take care of myself, those are your T and killer and helper cells. And those cells are sitting in the house. You're having dinner. It's almost like sitting at the dinner table with the troops, right? And they're ready to fight for you if you have a healthy body. And so that's one set of immune cells that'll help you. But outside those cells, you can have antibodies that can also protect you from the virus or from somebody knocking down your door. So imagine you're sitting at the dinner table and you're attempting to be safe. If somebody knocks the door down, you may be able to fight that off because you have the T helper cells and the killer cells there to fight it off. But just imagine if you also had people standing outside the house with guns cocked, and the guns were designed like a laser to focus on the enemy being COVID. So when you get a vaccination, what your body does is it prepares your body in advance to identify the spike protein on that virus so that you don't have to sit at the dinner table and wait for somebody to knock down the door. You actually got people outside taking care of the virus. And the reality is sometimes the antibodies are so effective that you don't even realize somebody's fighting outside your house. And most people with vaccinations may not even know that their body's being attacked because the body just kind of goes into auto mode. So it's really a better idea to not only be healthy, but to also have a body that has the troops already ready to fight the war. So that's what the vaccine will do for you. They'll create antibodies to that spike protein, which sits on the top of the virus. And they do a great job with that. And what they do is your body a lot of people worry about, well, I don't want to put this stuff in my body. I don't want that virus in my body. And the first thing you need to know is that almost every version of the vaccine being made right now does not take a live virus and inject it in your body. They don't take an inactivated virus and inject it in your body. What they do in case of Pfizer and Moderna is that they send a message to the body. That's why they call it messenger RNA. And the message is so sensitive because it doesn't last very long. It's like a sticky note. So imagine getting a sticky note. You take it and you give it to the body, and the body reads that message. And what the message is saying is, this is what this virus looks like. Not even a whole virus, just that spike protein, that cap. This is what it looks like. Make a copy of that and turn it into a protein. And then by the time that message gets sent, that messenger RNA disappears. So that now the body then goes and makes the the protein, and then your body says, okay, let's make antibodies. Like, what is that? And makes antibodies against it. So then when that happens, now your body's ready to fight the war. So it's really important to understand that. So, and this ideal about, is it going to change my genes? No, if you use messenger RNA, in no way does that incorporate into your genes whatsoever. It just, again, tells the body how to make the protein. That's all it does. It does not change your genes. So if you've heard that, it's simply not true. The other thing that I hear people worry about is this ideal about the additives. And you've heard of vaccines being made where they have things like aluminum and things like that. There's something called adjuvants, and you can look that up, ADJUVANT. And these are substances that they add to vaccines. They do not do it with COVID, but they add to some of the older vaccines to make your body identify the vaccine as a foreign substance so you can make an antibody to it. So in other words, it makes it more effective at identifying the vaccine. However, the COVID vaccine that's being made by Moderna and Pfizer and the others, they do not use those additives. So if you think about Pfizer, and you think about the fact that they have to keep it cold and frozen. One of the reasons why they have to keep it cold and frozen, because they don't have those preservatives that you typically think of. That's why it doesn't. So if anybody out there is listening, it's like, I don't want these additives and all these extra substances added. You don't have to worry about that, because they're not adding those substances when they make the vaccine. So those are the types of myths I wanted to kind of share with you, just to give you a sense of, what you need to be thinking about. And when you're talking to your family, you're going to hear all kinds of stuff that's going to make you pause. Another thing that's coming in a pipeline is the idea in some countries, like in the UK, they're actually thinking about giving one dose. And then instead of waiting 3 weeks to get the second dose, they're actually looking at the possibility of giving the second dose in 3 months. Why would they do that? Well, because they find that you're going to get a pretty effective response. And that's using the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. And you get about a 64% effectiveness with the first dose. So their theory is, let's vaccinate more people, so that we got all of these people at 64% protection. Now, when you get the second dose, it does get you to 70 to 80%. That's just for the AstraZeneca vaccine. But they're thinking about moving towards that model, because the more people we vaccinate, the more people we can save. So I just wanted to just give you that heads up. Another thing good about that new vaccine, AstraZeneca, and we're not using that yet, is that it's a little cheaper. So it's only about $2.18 versus Pfizer, which is like $20, and versus Moderna, which is probably like $24 or so up to $38 or so. The reason why that's important, because imagine those rural communities in the United States that don't have access to these fancy refrigerators to keep it cold. Imagine countries like India, where you have a lot of poverty. How are these people going to get vaccinated? So for Astra, I salute them for having a very affordable vaccine so that we can reach more people. And again, in the United States, we're blessed to have a country that's going to make it where we don't have to, spend a lot of money on it, and then we're going to pretty much get it for free. but I just want to make sure you understand it. And for those who are getting the Pfizer vaccine, which was the first one out there, it was about a 52% effectiveness, the first dose, which I got a couple of weeks ago. But once you get the second dose, it's up to about 90% effective. Now, the Moderna one is more like 95% effective after the second dose. So if you think about that, have you ever really heard of a vaccine that's that effective? And the answer is no. The idea that we're using messenger RNA and our body is making the protein copy itself is making this vaccine really effective. And it's really something that I'm really excited about, because if you think about it, if I remember one of the studies that talked about it, and literally nobody who got, I think it was Moderna, and nobody who got the vaccine actually ended up in a hospital. And 95 of the people who that didn't get the vaccine got COVID. Only 5 of the people who got the vaccine got it, but and 11 people of the 95 were in the hospital sick, and 0 people with the vaccine. So if you think about what do we really care about, we do care about getting it. We don't want to get it, but if we get it, the main thing we don't want to do is die from it. So you have a vaccination, particularly with Moderna, that, and again, both of them are very effective, that shows 0 people ended up dying, 0 people ended up in the hospital. So if you want to stay out of the hospital, if you haven't been exposed and you're concerned, you absolutely want to think about a vaccination. So other things that are important to think about is I want you to think about this idea of what are you going to feel if you get the vaccine. A lot of people are very afraid of the possible side effects. Now, in my health system, that's Advocate Aurora, we've already vaccinated about 35,000 people, and about 11,000 have gotten a second dose. We probably have had maybe 9 or 10 people really complain of any kind of side effects, and most of it is like itching, and maybe somebody got a rash or something. That's it. And these things go away, but nobody really got sick. Pretty much people get a sore arm, which is normal for a vaccine, but 35,000 people already in a health system, and you're not seeing people get sick. So one of the things people worry about, I don't want to get a vaccine because it's going to make me feel a little sick or feverish. And I have a different way of looking at that. In order for my immune system to work, it needs to tell me it's working. So I actually anticipated a sore arm because my body's creating immunity to the vaccine. I didn't get a fever, but if I had gotten a fever, that wouldn't bother me at all, because my immunity is working to make the antibodies, the troops that stand outside my house and protect me. So a lot of people worry about the idea that you're not going to feel good. What I've found in my talking to my colleagues and to my patients, most people are feeling just fine. And again, if you've had a flu shot and never had a problem with it, or a pneumonia shot and never had a problem with it, the chances are super high that you're not going to have any problems with this vaccine as well. People say it was so fast, Doc. It was too fast. They made the vaccine so fast. There's no way in the world that can be safe. Well, there are logical reasons why that's actually not true, that it was too fast. The first thing is that most vaccines from the past that try to identify the protein, those vaccines are made in such a way that they actually make the protein in the lab, not inside the body. So as I suggested earlier, you take messenger, you get a message, a sticky note, your body looks at it, and it makes a copy of that, and then it turns that into protein, right? Well, imagine if you had to do all of those processes outside the body. It may take 5, 6 steps to do that. And guess what the FDA has to do? They have to approve every single step. So one of the ways that we made this faster is that we were able to bypass all those extra steps, because all we had to do is get the message into the body. That's one step, and that's the only step they had to approve. So they bypass all of those other steps that may take 2, 3, and 4 years to get approved. So that was one of the main reasons why this was much faster. And again, they've been doing messenger RNA vaccinations for over 10 years. they just needed a disease to make a vaccine for. And luckily, they had already done the work. And that's why you hear about Pfizer partnering with another company. I think it's called biotech. Biotech is the messenger RNA part. Pfizer is the drug part. So they actually work together as a team. But they have been doing this research forever. Another thing that people think about that makes them nervous is it safe based on, have they studied enough people? Well, they tracked about 70,000 people for the study. I think it may have been both for the Moderna and Pfizer combined, but it was around 70,000 people. Think about that. Now, the question is that a big number or not? And the answer is yes. Most studies that I've looked at, they have much less number of people. It's probably in the 10,000 range and maybe even less. So 70,000 people being tracked to see if it's safe is a very safe number. And when you start looking at the number of people who ended up, having any problems, it was essentially hardly anybody. So it's really, in terms of safety, there's never been a safer vaccine put on the market. And so it was faster because of technology. It was safer because of the number of people in the trials. And I tell you, it is an amazing thing to see. And as Pastor suggested when we first got started, we're very, very, very blessed to have a vaccine that allows us to deal with a pandemic. Imagine if it did take 2 or 3 years. Imagine the number of people that would succumb to this if we had to wait that long. So that's one thing I wanted to mention as well. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, what are the, when you, if you get COVID, right, you worry about, this is the thing that you have to hear me say. I just thought about it. So I've heard as many as 1 out of 3 people who get COVID may have side effects that persist. So imagine you get COVID, you get in the hospital, or you may not, and you get symptoms, right? Imagine, I get calls at least every other day from a patient. And I had one today, and he was like, "Doc, I'm just tired." And we call that fatigue. "Doc, I just can't seem to get rid of this headache." It's 3 or 4 months later. "Doc, I'm still having shortness of breath." I hear that all the time. Now, this is the part that's scary about COVID, guys. We don't know that those symptoms will ever go away. So now the symptoms of a sore arm that I got a couple of weeks ago went away by the time I get to day 3. The slightly, I'm touching my arm now, it's still a little sore, but I by tomorrow evening, that'll probably be gone based on my experience with this, versus the risk of getting a chronic side effect that may or may not go away. And because COVID is so different, we do not know if that's going to happen. We don't know. So my thing is, why take a chance on that when you can simply get a vaccine and do it that way? And some people, by the way, if you get the vaccine and you get your second dose, it is true that you may have, if you have any side effects, it's supposed to be potentially greater. Why would it be greater? Well, because you've already established some immunity. So when it sees that messenger RNA again, and it may give you more symptoms. But at the end of the day, that's a small price to pay. So I know that there are a lot of people on social media. I want you to think about where you get your information, right? So on social media, you hear things, and you may even hear one doctor who thinks that the government's out to get you. And again, I'm not saying to trust the government 100%. What I'm saying is you got to be careful who that person is and what's their credential. And do they have the ability to truly say things that you can trust? So if you have somebody that's questionable, I need you to really question that credential of that person. So because if you don't do that, you'll hear one story from one doctor who you really shouldn't be trusting, who then will lead to you making decisions that can harm your family. I had one patient I saw who had, she had 6 losses in the last 6 months. Imagine that. she had 6 people in her family in the last 6 months succumb to COVID. So I am really tired of that. And I just do not want to continue to see that. And so I'm asking you guys to be careful. One thing I want to mention about people of color, there are some things that the research shows that we tend to be more predisposed to. I just took some biochemistry, and we talked about a cytokine storm. And so what happens with COVID is that it's almost like your immune system overreacts, and it tries to react, and it leads to a cytokine storm, which then leads to inflammation. And the inflammation, when you think about inflammation, think about pus, right? So imagine just throwing a whole lot of pus in a certain area in your lung. What is that going to do to your lung? It's going to cause irritation. You're not going to be able to breathe and get enough air. And what they found is that in communities of color, particularly African Americans, we tend to have more of a cytokine storm reaction. So in other words, we, for some reason, tend to get sicker from COVID than our white counterparts. So we are even more likely to benefit from getting a vaccination, because when we finally get sick, we don't do as well. So, and it's really important. So that's one thing I want you to know. And then we also, and just real quick, this idea of the mutant. A lot of people are concerned about the mutations that occur. And if you compared it to like the flu, which there's something called the R0 value, which is just telling you how infectious it is. So the R0 value for the flu is 1.1, meaning that for every person that gets the flu, only 1.1 persons will end up getting the flu that they come in contact with. Why is that true? Well, you know you got the flu within a day or two of getting it. So your incubation period, that's the medical term, is going to be much shorter for people who have the flu than for people who have COVID. Now, compared to COVID, their R0 value is 2.2, meaning that 2.2 people that you come in contact with may get the COVID virus. Now, why would that be true? Well, because the incubation period for COVID can be, anywhere from 5 to 10 days. So you're going around 5 days, maybe 7 days with no symptoms. And so, but you're interacting with your friends and family. And that's why I was such a big fan of telling people, if possible, do not gather for the holidays unless you're gathering with people that you live with. If you gather with people that you live with, those are the type of people that make sense. But if you're gathering your daughter from, on the south side and your cousin from the west side, and you're saying, well, there's just my family, that's probably not the way to go, because they simply could have been exposed. I saw 28 people virtually today, but on Monday, I saw about 25 people in person. Now, imagine a 52-year-old doctor who is exposed to people. Hopefully nobody had COVID, but then I'm going to leave that environment, and then I'm going to go spend time with my mom who's, over 70. Well, would that really make sense to do that? Now, my conscience couldn't let me do that, because if I did that and she got sick, I got to live with that for the rest of my life, right? So when we make decisions, you got to always think, well, what are the consequences, right? Now, when my mom gets vaccinated and I'm vaccinated already, maybe at that point, we can let the guards down a little bit. But until that happens, we got to be safe. And by the way, you know that the governor in Illinois has already lowered the age in most parts of the state from 75 to 65. We're hoping that in the next week or two, we will start being in a position where we can start giving a vaccine to those who are in that age category. So if you're in that age category, I strongly encourage you to hear my words, hear my plea, and consider the vaccination. Because again, the alternative is to have a illness that 1 out of 3 people potentially have chronic negative effects from. And I just don't want that to be you if it's not necessary, just like I don't want to be my mom. And that's why I really encourage my family not to gather. So those are the things I really want to kind of touch on. Understand that the health systems are doing all they can to make things safe. So if you have to go in to see somebody, just go in. They do everything they can to keep us safe in those environments. But the main message for tonight is that we really want to be in a position where we can safely encourage people to get vaccinated and safely continue to social distance and safely continue to wear our masks. I make sure I keep a mask everywhere. I got it right here, and I will wear this thing until things get better. I basically go to work, the grocery store, home, work, grocery store, home, and I only go to the grocery store once per week. And guess what? I basically, I actually, a lot of times I just pull up to Walmart and they just put the grocery in the car. So you have to keep doing things to be safe. And that's what we want to do. So those are the main talking points I wanted to share. And then if we get some questions, I can, we can throw into the mix. That would be great. So Pastor, if there's any questions, feel free to ask them. I would love to chime in.
Absolutely. But thank you. You just definitely gave us a lot of great information. And I love the way that you kind of explained it with the extra coverage that we have. If we get that, I love that analogy where people outside your house already geared up versus catching you off guard.
You saw Boys in the Hood. We got Boys in the Hood, but we're going against COVID.
That's right. Hey, I need that extra coverage, my brother.
That's
and
right.
Then, listen, you scared me with one though.
Yeah, what's that?
The chronic conditions that may never go away. Like I say, this is a novel. We are learning about it.
We don't know. And we've never, and it's a, think of it, we talked about that cytokine storm, right? So, and imagining pus and inflammation. I remember I used to, I'm actually a family doctor, but I was trained to do C-sections and tubals. In other words, I was doing C-sections as a family doctor at West Suburban in Oak Park. And I really missed that part of my life, delivering babies. And, most of my babies now are about 85, so it's a different population, right? I remember when I was doing that surgery, the bladder was the biggest risk. You didn't want to cut the bladder, right? So if you have the uterus and right next to it was the bladder, right? The bladder looked like that, what is it, saran wrap, that really thin wrap that you wrap packages with. It's so thin. I think it's saran wrap, and I haven't used it in a while. But my point is, it was that fragile looking. I'm like, how could the bladder that has to hold our urine all of these years be that thin? Your lungs are very fragile too. So those alveoli, those little sacs that open up and close, imagine that little sac half filled with pus. So how is it going to oxygenate you? It's impossible. And so then it's just a lot of, so what happens is there's damage occurring to those alveoli and parts of the lung. It's like trees. It's like, and the alveolar represents the leaves, but it's like trees, branches. So all of this damage while you're in the ICU on the ventilator is occurring. So once you recover, the damage is already done. So a lot of times the damage from the inflammation leads to scarred, damaged lungs that are never the same. Now, you may have a milder version of that didn't lead to you being on a ventilator, but it still happened. And when you start thinking about what I said about communities of color, that we're more prone to these cytokine storms, that's like a horrible, and the people that I've seen personally, I've lost, who work in my health system, were just 52, my age, and about 58. And the question is, what happened to those young people? Well, what happened to them is they had comorbidities, things like asthma, uncontrolled blood pressure. So when you put all of that together, and you say that people of color may be predisposed, you put yourself in harm's way. So what we're trying to do is think about all the levers we can pull, all the things we can do to start to reduce our risk so that if we get exposed to COVID, we will be in a better position to fight it off. And again, if I got the guy standing outside, then I got a way better chance of winning this war than if I'm sitting in the house having dinner. I got the cops with me, but I don't want to be in a position like at the White House where we had that brother bagging up. Okay. Imagine if we had people standing outside the Capitol. They would have never made it in. So the brother was backing up, and he's now a hero, but it could have been a disaster for that brother. You know, so I thank God that things worked out, but that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. Don't depend on that one brother to save your life. Let's put the troops outside the house and protect the White House and that house called this temple that God gave us.
Amen. Well, hey, I got some good friends on here from Life Church. They got some questions for you.
Yeah.
And once again, like I said, we just want to just say thank you for just sharing all this valuable information and breaking it down so everyday people can understand it. So we can all understand Boys in the Hood. So,
right. One of my favorite movies ever.
hey. So, hey, I want that vaccine. I want somebody on the outside protecting me. So we got a first question right here. Saying, should we be taking immune boosting supplements? I think that was you, Sister Michelle or Angie.
Yeah, that was
Sister Michelle.
Sister Michelle. I got a sister-in-law named Michelle, so I'm gonna be nice to you tonight. So the answer is yes. It goes back to what I said earlier. Let's do everything we can. So yeah, part of what we do is what I shared a moment ago. We're gonna wear a mask, right? Well, yes, vitamin D in particular is 98% of the people who succumbed to COVID were found to be vitamin D deficient. And a very small percent of the people who had adequate vitamin D succumbed to COVID. So that's an easy fix. Now, you can go outside on your deck or your balcony in Chicago and pray there's some sun out there. But the reality is your beautiful black skin tells the sun, don't mess with me right now. So the dark skin actually reduces your ability to process the vitamin D. So you have to get it from the pharmacy. So I would actually encourage everybody anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000, maybe even 5,000 of the vitamin D every day. The vitamin C is definitely a nice antioxidant. And so when you think about they call it oxidative stress. It's similar to the cytokine storm. So oxidation, just like a rusting apple, you can do an antioxidant where they donate an electron. I don't want to get too biochemical. And what happens is it stabilizes things so it's not going crazy. So the vitamin C is great, and the zinc is absolutely antiviral. It actually helps to inhibit the virus from entering the cell. So, and by the way, all the men out there, shout out to all the brothers. It's also good for your manhood. I'm just talking about it. Shout out to my brothers. Because if we don't show up, the ladies are going to be mad at us. So it's helpful. I just threw that in for free, Pastor.
I'm listening all ears.
That's right. That's right.
Amen. So you say that
zinc? Right. I know I messed up. All the shells are going to be empty now, but zinc is definitely good for testosterone too. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Some people let me throw this in too, a little extra. There's something called N-acetylcysteine or NAC. N-acetylcysteine or NAC. It's N-dash ACETYL-CYSTEINE, something like that. Reverse the video. It's rough, but it's a supplement that you take that also is particularly helpful for people who already got it and they're trying to reduce their symptoms. So it's a really good supplement to be aware of. There's also another one called quercetin, QUERCTIN. And I think that one works by inhibiting viral entry as well. So and we use that also for allergies, for people with allergies. So it's pretty safe. So I don't know that you have to go crazy, but I think the vitamin C, the D, and the zinc are critical. And maybe the quercetin, you can take that. And then the N-acetylcysteine is only if you've been exposed and you want to give your body, shorten the duration of the infection. So those are the things I tend to think about for supplementation.
Michelle, any follow-up?
I have a question. Mm-hmm. I am very allergic to multiple things right now. I'm going through a few allergy testing. So should I be taking the vaccine as of now, or should I wait until everything's cleared up?
Can I ask you a question about previous reactions to other vaccines, or have you had those? Like when you've had other vaccines, how did you respond?
I do take the flu shot every year and I'm fine.
Yeah, I think that's your answer. So when they first came out with this CDC recommendation to be cautious about people with allergies, they were being overly cautious. And then when they went back and looked at the people who got it, they were people who really were having like really bad reactions, not your typical itching kind of reaction. There were people with like anaphylaxis, people who really have, they have to walk around with an EpiPen and they, you sneeze on them. Yeah, right.
That's me.
Right.
I have to walk around with an EpiPen.
Right. But keep in mind, people who respond well to other vaccines should respond well to this, because again, what they found when they went back, they found that the responses that they were seeing were pretty much lined up with other vaccinations. Now, when I got my first vaccine, I had to sit there and crack jokes for 30 minutes because they didn't let me go, right? Now, for the second shot, they allowed me to leave after 15 minutes. So they do a good job of being safe. In fact, they're being so safe now that we're only giving vaccines in a hospital where you have a higher level of expertise. We're already preparing for the possibility of doing it in a clinic. And they're going to do the same thing. And one of the reasons that's creating problems is that if you're going to have people wait for 30 minutes, you have to have space for them to do it. So we may even go as far as maybe have to have an entire clinic. The whole building has to be a clinic for that purpose, because it's very difficult to find space to have people get a vaccine and then wait for 30 minutes and have social distancing and other things. So the word on the street from the CDC is that even a person like you should, with caution, should still get the vaccine, because the risk of getting COVID would be devastating. And so you want to put yourself out of harm's way. So that's my recommendation, but you would let the team know that that's your history. We've had 35,000 of our team members, again, get it. And we've had like a few people have like, itching and stuff like that. We've had no anaphylaxis, nothing. And I guarantee you a large percentage of those people also have a history like you.
Okay. Thank you. My father is getting his first vaccine shot tomorrow. What should I look for?
What you want to
80. He's
80 something. Okay. You want to, obviously, he may not feel much when it goes in, but I would anticipate that night he may get soreness at the injection site. Some people get swelling, most people don't. Some people get fever, most people don't. Some people get a headache or fatigue, most people don't. So those are the things you think about. And beyond that, not much. A rash is unusual, but it's possible.
If he should get a headache,
don't do
Tylenol. Okay.
Tylenol. Just do Tylenol and tell him it's going to be all right. Now, if he's like, worst headache ever, that's different. But I would definitely have him seen, but that would be highly improbable. And he's exactly the kind of person that should be vaccinated when you think about his age. I don't know the numbers for a 90-year-old, but for a 70-year-old, you have a 20% hospitalization rate and a 10% death rate. So it's higher for him.
Right.
And that's just if you got exposed to COVID, not the vaccine. Let me be clear.
Right. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Michelle, did you have a follow-up? Michelle, did you have a follow-up question?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I had another question out here for you, doctor.
Yes, sir.
She's online. Since I've never taken a flu shot or pneumonia shot, so I have no idea how to respond to this vaccine. How do you encourage her?
Yeah, I would. I definitely have a lot of patients. The irony is that a lot of my patients who never had vaccines, they're getting their first vaccine as a COVID because they're so afraid, right? So I think that the chances that you would respond negatively is less in a great way than the chance that you would have a reaction. The fact that you have never had a vaccine does make you pause, but it doesn't make me pause. It just means that you never had a vaccine. I would go back to the 70,000 people in the trials, the 35,000 in the Advocate Aurora trial. We'll call that a trial too. And the millions of people who are being vaccinated throughout the world. And if it was a problem, it would make the news. I did hear about one doctor that maybe died 2 weeks after getting a vaccine. Now, everything I know about vaccine tells me that that's the likelihood that that's the vaccine is very low, because people who die from an exposure usually die very quickly within a day, or the same day. So I think that his death, his life was probably heading in that direction either way. But again, I also want people to put things in perspective. I think yesterday for Illinois, we were about 121 deaths for Illinois, right? So just think about it this way. If I doubt that we'll have 121 deaths from the vaccine ever in the whole world. But we're losing 121 people in one state in one day, right? So you got to put things in perspective. So, and I'm not suggesting that I'm comfortable with a few losses here and there, but I'm comfortable with a few losses here and there. So if we have a few people get sick and we save millions of people, that's okay. I doubt that that'll be the case, though, because the safety, again, for this vaccine is off the charts. And the other thing I want to speak to is this syphilis experiment comparison. And again, it would have to be imagine if Pfizer was in cahoots with the alt-right and they're just trying to target Black people. They would have to also be in cahoots with Advocate Aurora and Northwestern and Rush. And they would have to say, get the Black folks that vaccine, not this one. What would logistically, how possible would that be? Pfizer sends their vaccines to every country on the planet. Moderna does too. So if it's a syphilis experiment, it's for the whole world. The probability that that's really what's happening is essentially zero. So what we do is we make these organizations accountable. We have Black organizations who have representatives who are part of, the oversight. We make sure some of the I saw a few posts on LinkedIn. Some of the scientists who actually created the vaccine are people of color, the leaders were kind of applauding. So there's a lot of little filters built in to make sure that this vaccine is not targeting people in a way that would be problematic. And by the way, 1 out of 3 people in the studies were people of color, which is highly unusual. So we know Black folk and Latin American folk were in the studies, and we know they did just fine. So we responded in a way that should make the person with the last question feel really comfortable. But I encourage her to go ahead and give it a shot, literally.
Amen. Amen. Elder Gerald, you have any questions out there for us, my good friend?
Yeah, Doc, I have a question. I was a little worried, a little skeptical about getting it, but now I feel a lot better if I get a chance to be able to take it. But Doc, I gotta be honest and open. I got a problem with how long that needle is. Can they do me with the butterfly?
Well, I will say this. First of all, don't look at the needle. Secondly, it's funny. When I used to do insurance physicals, and I would go to people's homes, and a lot of times they were lawyers and things like that. And they were getting, you need a doctor for your insurance if it's a $5 million policy or $10 million or more, right? And right. Guess who? When I would actually get ready to do my to draw blood, guess who was always the ones fainting and passing out? Guys like you, the big football player. The little fragile lady never did it. So I ain't mad at you. But they, the way these vaccines are made, they're kind of packaged. So you really can't change it. But I promise you, it's the smallest needle. I'm not exaggerating when I say I barely felt it. I think for you, it's a psychological thing. Do not look at the needle. Have your wife hold your hand or something and look the other way. But it's so worth it. So I understand. I really do.
And some things never change. Take your baby to the doctor. Hey, I have another question out here. A couple of questions online.
All right.
Is they have rheumatoid arthritis and my immune system is compromised.
Yeah.
My doctor suggests I should take the vaccine. Are there any particular side effects that they should be aware of?
Not really. There's a couple of ways of looking at this. You can say, well, my immune system is compromised. And if you're taking methotrexate or Plaquenil, those immune modulating drugs that tell your immune system to settle down, you probably won't make the level of immune response that a person who does not take those drugs. But the flip side of that is a person that's on those drugs get COVID, they're not going to do well because their immune system is already compromised, trying to protect them from the actual rheumatoid because of the medicine. So what you want to do is people like that are the exact people that you want to protect from COVID because they're more likely to not do well. So if you have a bag of medicines at home, you should get the vaccine. If you have multiple diagnoses, you should get the vaccine. If you have a respiratory condition like COPD or asthma, you should absolutely get the vaccine. If you have uncontrolled blood pressure or uncontrolled diabetes, of course, I want you to get it if it's controlled too. You should get the vaccine, because while you're trying to acquire the lifestyle, that's why I have my protecting the nest, nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, how you think, avoiding trauma. If you're not quite where you want to be yet, and you're not at your ideal state, you need that extra protection now while you're working on your New Year's resolution, which is, this is my year to knock it out. This is going to be a great year for most of us, because we now have a president who's talking about a $2,000 stimulus check and actually seems to care more about you. We got the vaccine, so maybe by the end of the year, certainly by October or so, maybe we're at a point where we can get these masks off, but I would kind of think a year later, it may be sooner. You can really have a great year, but part of having a great year is to feel good, and part of feeling good is to have a body that is able to lift you up in the morning and allow you to do the things you want to achieve, rather serve in the church or simply being an effective person at your job, or having energy at the end of the day to be with your family. Because even if I had to go spend 2 hours, I got to do some student stuff when I finish. But if I had to spend another hour or two family, and I would be fine because I'm not exhausted from the day, but I made sure I got enough sleep. What happens when you don't get enough sleep? Your immune system gets depressed. What happens if you're watching news all day and it's just, negative stuff? Your immune system gets suppressed. What happens if you never, ever, ever, ever exercise? Your immune system gets suppressed. So what you want to do is think, what can I do within my power to make me armed? It can be the supplements, it can be the face mask, it can be the social distancing, and it certainly can be the vaccine. And if you put all of those things together in your toolkit, the chances that you'll succumb to COVID essentially goes down to like zero.
Thank you. Very good. Appreciate that. Another question. What causes the soreness in the arm, and does it happen with both shots?
Yeah, it will come. Well, I can tell you it come with both because I'm still feeling it. It's your body will send all the immune cells to that area saying, what's that? And why is it there? And when it gets there, it's gonna, your immune system, think about when you going back to that pus scenario, your body's, when you send immune cells to an area, you get swelling, right? So even though I don't see swelling on my arm, on the inside, there's some swelling on the inside because it's sending all these fluids and cells to start creating an immune response. So that's actually a normal thing. But it's just the immune system trying to bring the troops to that area. And it's just going to create a little extra fluid, which then causes pressure from the swelling that's inside that then leads to some discomfort.
Okay. And then a follow-up question from a friend that had the rheumatoid arthritis. Says, I used to take Palicnil. Now I take Sulfazaz, I believe that is.
All those immune modulators, and they all pretty much do the same thing. All the doctor is trying to do is find the best cocktail that will reduce the inflammation. Now, I'll be honest with you. One thing that she wants to think about is, have she focused on her diet? Because if you have an anti-inflammatory diet, now if you talk to Dr. Terry Mason, who I do the couch conversations with the doctors on Mondays, he would say become vegan, and that's okay. It works. I would say get the starch and sugar out your life. So if you go low carb or keto, you'll reduce inflammation. I have multiple patients who were on these types of medicines who got off those medicines by getting their carbs under 50 and sometimes under 20 a day. So the inflammation goes away and the need for the medicine in some cases goes away. So if she has not tried that ever, she should try that. There are plenty of places to learn this stuff. thedietdoctor.com. I have a website, drtonyhampton.com. Got a couple of videos that talk about that. So it may be an opportunity to learn these basic principles. And and just figure out, how do I reduce inflammation in my body? So that's what I would suggest that she considers, because there is a path to getting off of medicine.
All right. Elder Gerald, you got a question?
Yes, I do. Doc, both of my sons had the COVID. Should they take the virus? I mean, take the shot?
Yeah, I would say yes. And the only reason I say that is because some of the stuff I've looked at as I researched it suggests that the immune response seems to be better with the vaccine than from the exposure you get from the actual virus, which is really odd. You would think it would be better, right? But it actually seems to be better. So they would, and what we found is that people can get it a second time, right? So they probably have some immunity already. So let's just say their immunity is at 60% because they got it. We can get that up to 90, 95% if they get the vaccine, so that they can then be more comfortable as they interact with their families and, work and do those types of things. So that would be my message to them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Everybody wants to be protected. Remember?
Yeah. And that's a great question. Great question.
And then my friend that had the question with the rheumatoid arthritis, she says that she's already on that low
she's
carb
doing
diet.
it.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I gotta say amen to that, and good luck with that. And she'll be successful. Be patient, but just be consistent, and make sure she enjoys what she eats. It shouldn't be boring. I got a whole link on my website. It says Diet Doctor, and you go down to the bottom of that page, and all kinds of recipes, stuff that don't even look healthy, that you can learn to make in a way that's low carb friendly. And that way you can still get a taste of some of those things that we would miss, like a slice of cake, for example. There's ways to make that in a keto friendly way. So not a problem.
Amen. Well, hey, we have thoroughly enjoyed you. You have truly informed us on the vaccine, how it works, why it's novel, why they were able to do it in such a efficient manner, short period of time. And then just give us all the facts. This is one you don't want to get, because none of us know how we're going to respond. And we have to accept the reality that we as African Americans, we don't do so well.
That's right.
So based upon that, knowing everything that we know, we should do everything in our power, wear the mask, social distance. And when the vaccine becomes available, consult with your physician to see if this is a good alternative for you, and take it.
That's right.
You know what I have, doctor? This is what I say for all of my brothers and sisters out there that's saying, I'm not putting that vaccine in me.
Right.
That this is very basic. It's on the level of your boys in the hood.
That's right.
I say for all you individuals that you'll put that chronic inside your system. Or you put all of those cigars inside your system, all that alcohol. You put all that poison in your system for entertainment. I think you should take a second thought, a second look at, putting this vaccine is there to help you move forward in life. So let's not make excuses to do what's right and what's in our best interest, and to be our brothers and sisters keeper. At the end of the day, this is all about being a good neighbor, right? Vaccinating ourselves and minimizing the risk that we get it and that we don't spread it to one another. So I look forward to having you every month, Doc.
I would be happy to come back anytime, and I echo everything you just said. So feel free to ask me to come, and if I can add some expertise based on my experience, I would love to do that.
Hey, well, I got you here. My last question, pastor, preacher, and all that good stuff. So what are your thoughts on churches inviting parishioners back in?
Yeah, I think I particularly like the idea of it being more aggressive as we are starting to do what we're doing with the vaccination. So right now I believe in social distancing, and we keep people in the church, but at a slight distance. As we start to vaccinate people, we will probably be able to lighten those strings a little bit. So I think I'm very comfortable with social distancing for now, wearing masks. But then once we get a little further down the road, and it won't take but a few months. And we may even go as far. I think this is something we haven't figured out as a health system or as a CDC. There may come a time when we say, you know what, these 50 people out of the 100 were vaccinated, so we should be a little bit more open to giving them a little bit more breathing room, if you should say. So I think that those things will develop, but right now, keep a little bit of the social distancing with the understanding that in the next few months, things are about to get really good in a great way. But people shouldn't be afraid to leave their house and wear the appropriate gear and be around people as long as you're keeping the rules in place. And I think if you're doing that, you should be able to do it. I think there's some harm that occurs when you are I see people walking their dog outside my window by themselves with a mask on. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's not a horrible thing. I'm just saying you don't have to wear a mask when you're walking your dog by yourself outside. I think people get a little paranoid, but of course, if you're walking outside and you see a group of people coming towards you, you probably should have your mask with you, or you keep your distance. But when you're outside, you should be able to get some of that exposure without any problem. So.
All right, so you got some compliments. A lot of people saying I'm convinced. I
love that. Yeah, that's what I want to hear. So
everybody out there, I want you to take the initiative and spread the good word that you heard tonight with your family and friends that, hey, you need to be open to this vaccine. In addition to that, Doc, while I have you here, I'm gonna be a little bit selfish. So at this point, you as my advisor or consultant, considering opening back up the church, you would say it would be okay?
I think so. I think you do it if you do it in a socially distant fashion. Absolutely. I think that I think there's value in that, and I think that I'm sure some of I'm taking a picture of that comment because I loved it so much. but I'm gonna give you some more. I love that. Yeah, let me stay there. I'm gonna share this because I love seeing that people are like, that's the best thing I can hear.
So y'all got love out there for the doctor. He wants to see some love. Now the doctor,
I love that love. So that's right.
Right there. Show your love.
I love it. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you for that love. So yeah, I would. Yeah, I think you can, and just make sure people understand what's the rules of engagement, and it's going to be nice for people to kind of see and be around each other and follow the rules, and that's the key. So we're getting towards the other side of the curve now. And we just got to, do that. So I think if we do it in a safe manner, we should be able to pull it out.
Well, Doctor, I want to personally extend an invitation because I think we're going to potentially open back up in the month of February.
Okay.
If we have a Sunday that you're open, I would love for you just to come and.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, well let's mark that on the calendar. I would definitely be happy to do that.
Well, we appreciate you. Life Church, please, let's show this brother some love because you have just been so overwhelmingly just sharing all of this valuable information, your personal experience. He's had 2 shots and he's still here.
Still here. That's right.
That's right, man. And you have a personal experience, and I just love you just being transparent with us. Yeah. We need the truth, and I think we've suffered from that, and that's the tragedy of all of this is, what if at the very beginning, if we dealt with this in a truthful and honest manner? That's the tragedy right now.
Oh man, yeah.
No blame on one person, but it just leads you to what if. That's so right. We can't deal with one if, but going forward, we can do our part of taking advantage of the blessing, the gift that the good Lord has allowed us to get this vaccine. So let's do our part. Faith Life Church, all our family and friends that's been out there watching tonight, please share the word. Hey, you can take this off of YouTube and you can send it out to your family and friends, replay it. But let's be the lifeline to educate and to empower our community with the truth that this vaccine is a blessing and not a curse. So we thank you, my friend. Thank you, Life Church. Remember, on this upcoming Sunday, we want to make sure that you come out at 9:30 to be with us. Going live 9:30, Life Church, getthelife.org. So we want to invite all of you to be there. As you see, I'm messing up my screen right there because I got my friend Jackie out there with her quote. So we'll just go ahead and close it out. Get a little laughter over there, Doctor. I can't multitask all at once. But hey, we just appreciate everyone for being a part of this broadcast here, and just pray that this truly has helped you in your understanding. So take care and God bless.
All
take
right.
care.
All right.